In today's video, I'm going to be talking with you about death and change and how important it is to start to integrate that theme of death and rebirth in your life. Welcome to my channel. My name's Fola Veritas, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you could join in. If you're already familiar, welcome back. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell so you're notified of any future videos, and feel free to share this video with anyone you think might be struggling with this theme of death and rebirth in their life. We've been going through so much change, and I feel like this right now, this topic is just so important because there's so many people who are struggling with wanting to go to the next step in their life because we have so much fear about death. As a Scorpio, I've always been drawn to the theme of transformation and like deeper change, but I will admit I was really kind of fearful of death. And I think I still have some fears of like ego death, I won't lie. But when I was younger, for sure, like the actual like concept of losing people that I care about just used to freak me out. And so when I say death, I don't just mean the physical act of our physical body like passing on and transitioning. That is a huge part of it, for sure. And a part of which our society is kind of labeled as not good. We don't have the rites of passage as much as other cultures do around this area. But I'm also talking about the deeper transformation that life can bring. And it's something that's helped me to really step more into my powers to start to see the theme of birth, death, and rebirth in my life and in the world around me. Again, this death and change is inevitable. Everyone is touched by it, no matter who or what race, what status, you are going to experience it in some way. Are you going to be ready for it is the question. Thinking back to when I was in my university days, I can really share with you a bit about how fearful I was around death. My parents used to come and visit during the summer holidays. We'd all hang out, we'd go on like vacations and just spend like 24/7 together for like 2 months. And what would happen is when the days they were going back, I would start to feel this like really intense sorrow, and my mind would start worrying about like, what if I don't see them again? And like they're old, they're gonna die, and all these things. And I would get so in like just fear and sadness. And it would always come up. I would share this with them. And it really had this like healing, I guess, on like heart to heart level, because I shared with them how I felt. And they shared with me also how they sometimes thought these things. But obviously, you know, the older we get, the more mature we are in our development, our consciousness, our perception of death changes. And so I guess with age, it just comes naturally. But I used to think how, okay, if anyone's gonna die, I need to die first so that I don't have to deal with like the sorrow of losing anyone in my life, which doesn't really work out the best or work out in that way anyway. And you know what, when I think about it, I've had loved ones or family relatives pass on. I've had friends who've passed on, but we've kind of separated over the years. But it really hit me hard. And I will share a bit of some stories of experiences around this because I have seen it how this transition from that birth to rebirth and through death can really be prominent. Humans are such tangible beings. We really are. We think that because we die in the physical body, we just no longer exist. But that's not true. We know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And so what happens when we move on from this life? It's like the energy just flows into the next state or whatever it needs to be used for. As I began to awaken to my spiritual journey on this planet, I could really see the beauty of this. And thinking back to times where I had people pass on and then changes that occurred, like one particular example I'll tell you, I had a friend in high school who then we went to university and, you know, we stayed in contact a little bit. And then it's like life goes on, right? Here it was, I got married, all these things, and then I was pregnant. And this was at the beginning of the pregnancy. Her and I had started connecting again, which was kind of cool. And she started talking to me about like, hey, like maybe we can do some like visiting or something like that. And I was like, yeah, like this would be great. So it was, I remember we had a really like deep conversation this one evening. But then it was a week later, I was actually going in for my ultrasound. Like I was at the ultrasound clinic waiting when I was just looking at my phone. I think my mom was with me. And I was looking at my phone. I had yet to see like the first images of my child. And there on social media, I found out that this friend had passed away. And I was just like totally blown away. I'm like, I thought she was okay. Like she was gonna have the surgery and, you know, all these feelings of like guilt and things, like they came over me. And here we go into this room to get this ultrasound, and then I see the image of my child on the screen. And that to me was like a complete mind-blowing experience and at that point actually I had not had my spiritual awakening, but I remember thinking like, oh, like I just had this death, like of someone pretty close to then my child. And I won't lie, sometimes I'm like, is it like her essence and her energy is in my child? I don't know, but it's something like beautiful like that. And after I had my awakening and like more into these understandings through the shamanism about death and rebirth, because really this is a big theme. You know, we need to have something let go of, or have something to let go of in order to make shifts. And actually in the center of the wheel within, like the medicine wheel of the shamanic practices that I follow with Great Spirit, is that at that point, the death and the ability to be reborn into like the void. It's almost like that full circle. You enter into spirit and then you come out again into like starting the whole cycle again in a way. But because I had a bit more awareness, I was starting to connect these dots between the occurrences in my life. And another time I remember there was someone had called into the work I was at, and they shared that this client had passed away. And I remember being like, oh, like it was just so prominent in my awareness. I had not even taken this call, but I remember thinking like, it was just like a weird energy, like, oh, like I don't know who this person was, but I could just feel like the death, like that, this kind of like just very heavy sort of feeling of like it's ended. And then within like half an hour, we had received another call. Again, I didn't take any of these calls, but it was just so prominent in my awareness of being in the room. And this person calling in was just canceling an appointment because they'd had a baby. And I remember thinking like, oh, one person had passed on and another has come through, right? And this might not resonate with everyone, this like transitional thought. I mean, we go into concepts of like hell and heaven and like afterlife, right? But there's something if you start to open up to seeing what's the deeper meaning around the loss of something. What does this mean? And it doesn't need to be a human form. I will tell you now, I lose my earrings just like, or something else I've noticed is like glass jars shattering. And it's always around the time I'm having some like new understanding, new insight about my life. So really, I would encourage you to like investigate, what things are you losing? What's changing in your life? And if that's happening, what maybe is trying to make its way into your life? And are you willing to accept it? Obviously, these could be weird, synchronistic, or coincidences, whatever. I think there's a deeper meaning to it. And if you're really willing to see those connections, you'll start to understand it on the way that you need to understand it. And I know death, it can be hard, it's scary, it's that unknown, right? We don't know what we're going into. And it can mean the loss of something that you've held really as quite important in your life, or as comfortable, relationships, things like that. And you know what it is, and it feels good. But sometimes you get this inner bubbling of knowing like it's time to let this transition, it's time to let it go, or to have that change. It's like, really, are you willing to face that and accept that? But really, I like to think we all eventually have to face that light at the end of the tunnel. You know, whether that's a metaphor or not, who knows? But we have the opportunity to allow the ease of death and transformational change to become so much easier than it needs to be if we can just remain unattached to the outcomes or expectations of what things need to look like, or what we think is maybe best for us. Because I think in the end, it's really about the like spirit. Spirit knows what the life path is, and our ego mind, or what we've known, right, and have been comfortable with, can make it seem like, oh no, like this is the right thing. So just really you have to trust. Just really, I encourage you to breathe into the heart space and trust what comes up for you around any loss that's coming up. And to know that it's okay to have those feelings of sadness or anger, of denial, you know, those basic bereavement things. Like no matter if you've lost a physical person or a loved one, or if it's a job or a relationship or some belief system that now you're like stuck with, well, what do I believe? It's okay to feel those feelings and to allow them to move through you. And if you need to talk to someone, like a counselor or whoever, talk and confide in with someone, right? Because that's going to definitely help you to put things into a different perspective, and that healing can then come up. And I'd like to think too that when we're in these energetics of change and of death, it's almost like we're riding a wave, and it can be so beautiful to be able to ride that wave and see the energies that are going to come up for us, how we can use those energies to then create more momentum in our life, more change for positive things that we want to see happen. And it was kind of taking me to like the dark thoughts of, is this where they would do like sacrifices of people and things? I don't know. Definitely do not do that. I'm just saying. But there's something about that beauty of like transition. And I guess maybe that's what the ancestors thought they needed to do. I don't know. Thank God we live in the 21st century. That's all I can say. So I just want to encourage you to check in with these questions. Ask yourself, what's your relationship with death and change? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you try to ignore it when it shows its head? And how can you open up more and trust the beauty of change in your life right now? And what are you holding on to that wants to move on or transition? Are you willing to let go of it and make way for the new opportunities, new relationships and friendships and experiences, new feelings and ideas, a new you in a way? So feel free to journal on those questions. Just really dive into that, contemplate it, and see what comes up for you. And know that it's going to be an endless experience of just having to navigate these feelings that come up. So journal about these questions and just trust that the answers you need are going to arise within you. So I wanted to pull a card just as we go through, kind of support you as you maybe start to contemplate more on this concept of death, of change. Feel free to let us know in the comments where you are in this theme in your life right now. And if it's something that you struggled with for a while, like, it's okay. Denial. I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. So these are the soul journey cards, and you can really just look at that image. I'm going to put it a little closer so you can see that little mandala image. Just really trusting that maybe even though you've gone through denial in life, you can acknowledge that you've had fear, but now you can change it because you're becoming aware. And by answering those questions and tapping into you, you're only going to become more aware. So I'll leave that with you, and I hope you guys have a fabulous week, and I will see you next time. Bye.